Hey there, fellow workplace warriors and generational peace negotiators. I'm Thrive. Welcome to our deep dive into the great work ethic debate of our time. Grab your coffee or matcha or whatever caffeinated beverage helps you tolerate your coworkers, because we're about to unpack why Gen X thinks Gen Z is lazy and why Gen Z thinks Gen X is traumatized, and why both might be onto something. Let's get into this. Let's start with a scene we've all witnessed. A Gen X manager sends an email at 10 p.m. with urgent in all caps, expecting everyone to open it. A Gen Z employee opens it the next morning while leisurely sipping a $7 matcha latte. The generational gasp could power a small wind turbine. But here's the thing, both sides are kind of technically right, and also they're technically judging each other. So let's break this down, shall we? Part 1, the great parenting divide, how they were raised. Look, I'm a Gen Xer and we grew up like feral cats, latchkey kids with house keys around our necks, and a survival instinct sharpened by afternoons watching unsolved mysteries alone. Our parents' advice? Figure it out. Their career philosophy? If I'm not working, I'm replaceable. Picture this. It's 1985. Little Timmy, age 10, comes home from school. The house is empty. He microwaves a Hot Pocket, does his homework, and tries not to get kidnapped before his parents come home at 7 o'clock. This was normal. This was fine. Fast forward to Gen Z's childhood, raised by those same Gen Xers who said, I suffered so my kids won't. They got structured playdates, constant validation, and resumes packed with extracurriculars by the age of 12. Their mantra? If I'm not valued, I'm out. Imagine little Zoe, also age 10, but it's 2010. Your day is a carefully orchestrated symphony of school, soccer practice, coding class, and a family dinner where everyone shares their feelings. Kidnapping? Not on this helicopter parent's watch. The result? Gen X thinks Gen Z is entitled, and Gen Z thinks Gen X is exploited. And the data says both are kind of right. A recent study shows 64% of Gen Z prioritizes mental health over salary compared to 48% of Gen X. It's almost like watching your parents burn out makes you rethink your life choices. Who knew? Part 2, work ethic. Hours versus output. The great lie. Now let's talk about the holy grail of workplace judgment, work ethic. Gen X's definition of hard work goes something like this. Answering emails on vacation to show dedication. Bragging about surviving on 4 hours of sleep and 3 cups of terrible office coffee. And believing loyalty means staying at a job that hasn't given a raise since 2003. Gen Z's definition? Brace yourselves. I'll work hard between 9 and 5. If I'm online past 6, something's definitely wrong. And why stress? The CEO's bonus isn't paying my rent. The real issue? Gen X measures effort in hours. Gen Z measures it in results. And here's where it gets kind of interesting. Science backs up the Gen Zers. A Stanford study found that productivity tanks after 50 hours a week. So, Gen X, our hustle might just be inefficient. I'll pause while we all process that revelation. Part 3, free time, or the thing that Gen X forgot about. Now let's talk about that mythical concept called free time. Gen X relaxes by refinancing our mortgage, checking our work emails just in case. Our hobby? Anxiety. Gen Z? They're out here living their soft life. Therapy appointments, midday walks, and boundaries so firm they could be national borders. They saw their parents burn out and said, nah, I'd rather not. Gallup data shows that 54% of Gen Z values work-life balance over pay. Gen X, only 41%. So yeah, Gen Z isn't lazy. They're just not romanticizing burnout like it's a Nora Ephron movie. Nora Ephron made movies in the Gen X era, usually had Meg Ryan in them. Anyway. Part 4, tech wars, fax machines versus AI overlords. Now on to the battlefield of technology. Gen X, why are they always on their phones? Gen Z, why are you still printing that PDF? Gen X remembers dial-up. Gen Z automates their job with ChatGPT. A McKinsey study found companies embracing Gen Z's tech-first approach see 30% higher efficiency. Meanwhile, butts in seats policies. 72% of Gen Z would take a pay cut to avoid it. Before you judge that intern for slacking, ask, are they actually not working or just not suffering the way you did? Part 5, the great communication divide. Now let's talk about how these generations communicate, shall we? Gen X grew up making phone calls and writing memos. They value face-to-face interactions and think CC means carbon copy, not career crusher. Gen Z, well, they'd rather eat glass than make a phone call. They communicate in memes, GIFs, and carefully crafted emails that have have been proofread more times in their college thesis, and probably made in ChatGPT. A study by Slack found that 85% of Gen Z prefers asynchronous communication at work. Meanwhile, 70% of Gen X managers feel disconnected from their teams in remote settings. It's like watching two people try to have a conversation in different languages on different planets using tin cans and a string. Part 6. The Loyalty Conundrum. Now let's dive into the concept of company loyalty. Gen X was raised on the idea that you pick a company and you stick with it. Gold watch at retirement, anyone? They view job hopping as a sign of instability or lack of commitment. Gen Z, on the other hand, treats jobs like Tinder dates. They're here for a good time, not for a long time. A Deloitte survey found that 61% of Gen Z would leave their current job within 2 years if a better opportunity came along. Is Gen Z disloyal, or are they just responding to a job market that no longer rewards long-term commitment? After all, studies show that job hoppers tend to earn more over their lifetime. It's almost like they're applying logic to their career decisions. The audacity. Part 7. The Great Purpose Pursuit. Here's where things get philosophical. Gen X was taught to work for a paycheck. Purpose? That's what hobbies are for. Gen Z, however, wants their work to have meaning. They're not just looking for a job, they're looking for a cause. A study by Cone Communications found that 94% of Gen Z believes companies should address social and environmental issues. Only 87% of Gen X felt that way. It's a small difference, but it does speak volumes. This pursuit of purpose isn't just idealism. Companies with strong social missions tend to have better employee retention and higher profitability. So maybe Gen Z is onto something with their desire to save the world and get paid for it. Part 8. The Feedback Loop. Now let's talk about feedback, shall we? Gen X was raised in a no news is good news culture. If the boss isn't yelling at you, you're probably doing fine. Annual reviews were like surprise parties, but instead of cake, you got criticism. Gen Z, they want feedback like it's oxygen. A study by Wakefield Research found that 75% of Gen Z workers expect feedback from their manager at least every few weeks. Gen X managers are out here thinking, I haven't had a performance review since the Clinton administration, and I turned out fine. When's the last time I had one? This constant need for feedback isn't neediness, it's a desire for growth and improvement. And companies that have implemented regular feedback systems have seen increases in employee engagement and productivity. Who knew communication could be beneficial? Part 9. The Great Recession versus the Great Resignation. Now let's zoom out a little bit and look at the economic context that shaped those generations. Gen X entered the workforce during economic booms and busts, including the dot-com bubble and the 2008 financial crisis. They learned to keep their heads down and be grateful for any job they had. Gen Z, they entered the workforce during a global pandemic and promptly said, nah, we can do better. The Great Resignation saw millions of young workers quitting their jobs in search of better conditions, better pay, and for a purpose. Is Gen Z entitled for demanding better? Or are they simply refusing to accept the status quo that left many Gen Xers feeling trapped and burnt out? It's almost like watching economic history try not to repeat itself. It's kind of complicated. Part 10. How to fix this before the group chat explodes. So how do we bridge this generational divide before we all die of eye-rolling inducing headaches? Here's the solution. Take the best of both worlds. Combine Gen X's discipline with Gen Z's boundaries. Merge Gen X's resilience with Gen Z's demand for purpose. And for the love of all productivity, stop glorifying overwork. Companies like Patagonia have nailed it, offering flexibility and mission-driven work. The result? A 4% turnover rate in an industry where 60% is normal. It's almost like treating employees like human beings leads to happy employees. Revolutionary, I know. As we wrap up this generational therapy session, remember, work shouldn't be a suffering contest. It's okay to care about your job and your sanity at the same time. The next time a Gen Xer mutters, kids these days, remind them, Gen Z is why your boss can't text you after midnight anymore. And Gen Z, maybe consider picking up the phone once in a while. Your Gen X colleague might have a panic attack, but they'll appreciate the effort. In the end, both generations bring valuable perspectives to the table. Gen X's resilience and work ethic combined with Gen Z's tech savviness and demand for balance could create workplaces that are both productive and, dare I say it, enjoyable. So whether you're a Gen Xer learning to set boundaries or a Zoomer learning to appreciate face-to-face communication, remember, we're all just trying to figure out this thing called work. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn from each other. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go take a nap. The data says I'll be better at my job for it. And isn't that what we all want? Like if you like, sub if you sub, share if you share. I'm Thrive. Bye.